Welcome to my review for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, directed by Tim Burton. A young adult fantasy film centered on a Floridian outcast who travels to Wales to uncover the mysteries that lie with his grandfather's death and his reoccurring stories about a home for children with superhuman abilities of the 1940s. Of course, as I've already stated, this film is directed by Tim Burton, who has directed an array of iconic films that I don't even need to cite because, as far as directors go, he's kind of a household name as much as his films are. I do consider myself a Tim Burton fan. I quite liked Big Eyes back in 2014. It was one of my favorite films of that year. I also really liked Frankenweenie. Then you look at something such as Sweeney Todd that came out almost a decade ago, a film that is among his top 3 achievements, at least from where I stand. However, coming off of Big Eyes, which I do think is great, and going into this film, I have to say that this film isn't nothing extraordinary. It's pretty decent at best. Though it does have that weird, gothic, wondrous nature and production design that Tim Burton is known for having. So for those people who love Tim Burton being Tim Burton, you are going to get that, unlike Big Eyes, which was a great departure of what we know of Tim Burton. For instance, and not too unlike Big Eyes, you do have the pastels, you do have the very vibrant colors when it comes to showing greenery and that kind of thing. On the other end, you also have a lot of the darks, a lot of the blacks, and some pretty unique costuming. There's even one scene, it's a brief one but a very cool one, that features a little bit of stop motion animation, Tim Burton kind of going back to his roots. Moreover, to really break this film down, or at least compare it to other forms of fiction out there, it's a bit like X-Men, Harry Potter, and Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland, more so to do with the theme of madness, almost sort of questioning what is real and what is purely illusion. And what's funny is that as I was watching this film, at some point I thought to myself, you know who would be just the perfect choice to direct an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland? Tim Burton. And then I remembered, oh shit, that actually did happen, and it wasn't very good. Speaking of what isn't good, Asa Butterfield as the lead, he's quite bad as he nasally delivers his lines without a hint of personality. It's kind of like watching a piece of drywall trying to act, and even that, I think, would have probably been more entertaining than his performance. Honestly, this really does cripple the film because he is our conduit to this world, and he's also the hero, the person we are supposed to root for. Though I suppose it isn't all of his fault, and I guess I can't say that I blame him, given that the character itself, Jake, isn't all that well-rounded. He is an outcast, but he's kind of an ungrateful, whiny little shit who constantly displays disdain, or at least apathy, for his parents, and his whole thing is like, well, they just don't get me. To which I say, boo motherfucking who. Parents aren't meant to understand their children. And it's not like his parents abuse him, he's just an ungrateful little fuck. However, and very much thankfully, when the movie does take place in the peculiar world, I was able to look past everything Asa Butterfield and allow myself to be swept away by this world that Tim Burton and co managed to set up so intriguingly. Excluding Jake's peculiarity because his is just somewhat unnecessary if you really think about it, all these other kids and their peculiarities I did find to be interesting, or at the least bit creative. And there's also the rather unsubtle performances by Eva Green, who plays Miss Peregrine, and then there's Samuel L. Jackson, who really brings a whole new meaning to the idiom hamming it up as he commands his group of Slender men, and yes, you did hear that correctly. Watching the film, it really is easy to see that these are 2 actors who are having a blast in their roles, and it is infectious. And the prosthetics that Samuel L. Jackson dons throughout the entire film, it really is something to see to believe. Overall, if you're somebody who enjoys Tim Burton films, or you just like the overall look of Tim Burton films, I do think this is a movie that is worth seeing. If you're not, however, this is something along the lines of a very solid rental. So with that said, I'm going to give Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children a 3 out of 5. If you are somebody who has seen Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, then do let me know your thoughts on it, and as always, I'm Colin Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.